it all depends what my breakthrough is, because I don't want to just write another book with things that other people have written before. So that's why my own process is my most interesting research.
Yeah.
Because then if you really make a breakthrough of something you can do for yourself and that you can share that with other people, then you have a message of hope. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So if you would call that my dream, yeah, I would like to have a book that really helps a lot of people.
Good morning, Jan. For me, it's good evening.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah. 11 a.m. for me.
Yes. So you're living in the US, Santa Barbara, I believe?
Santa Barbara, California, yes.
And how is life right now? We're the 8th of April. I mean, Corona is very active now in the US. How is life for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're in almost lockdown. We can only go out for necessary trip, food store, and to the doctor.
Okay.
And that's it. But social life is very much totally reduced to zero.
Okay. And that was recently, like last week, because in Belgium it is already
No,
3 weeks.
No. We're very, very lucky that we have a governor who acted way faster than most other states in the United States. Like the East Coast is the worst. Like as soon as it's San Francisco, he took measures for the whole state.
Okay.
And that is our saving grace. Like California is not doing too bad, actually. We in our county here, I think we have like 8 cases in the hospital.
Okay.
In bad shape. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I mean, and of course you could expect that question. What do you think is going to be the impact of Corona on humanity? Like, impact is maybe the wrong term, but a lot of people call it some kind of awakening. Do you think this is, in your personal opinion, the awakening for humanity?
I hope it, but there's also a part that is very resistant to change. So some things will have to change to take one thing that I think will change is the whole production manufacturing chain of multinational companies. Because, like, for instance, a Boeing is made in like 50 countries and then assembled in the United States. And when there is no transport possible, they're losing enormous amounts of money. So I think they will have to reorganize the manufacturing chains in many cases. Traveling will change. So to what degree that we will really get another society in positive terms, I don't know. It might be a lot of Big Brother.
Yeah.
Like being followed on apps, because that's being introduced now in many cases. Like I just read that in Holland, they want an app to follow you if you have Corona. But once those apps are active, I don't know. It's a very mixed feeling I have about it.
Yeah, fear?
But hope is that it will be eventually positive.
Yeah. Do you have fear?
No. There are moments that you're worried that things could go wrong, but as soon as you see that, you can step out of it. It's not that your survival brain gets stimuli. That is normal. But the fear doesn't take over.
And do you think that spirituality or consciousness, whatever you want to call it, I mean, is still for a minority of the humanity which is interested in that? And maybe it's because I've developed over the years that I attract more of these people, but I'm starting to notice. For instance, I made a podcast about selling, and I do one episode about Corona, and I talk about meditation and be conscious and awareness and things like that. Most popular episode ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah. Well, what I can see is that to the degree that the external world becomes hard to live with, that you will more easily go into the internal world. And we're lucky to have social media that we can stay socially connected. So that I was reading this morning that somebody said it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. We should stay socially close.
Connected, yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely a huge benefit of the social media and the internet, that we can, what we're doing now is actually amazing. In the Middle Ages, when there was the plague, people couldn't talk on Skype or on Zoom. So luckily, yeah.
I've noticed that I wouldn't say it's the same energy when you're physically together, but energy is energy, and you can get in a kind of flow or co-creation state even when you're not physically in the same room.
That's right. Yeah, I remember the first time I did a session as a coachee, that I was skeptical, but I was actually amazed that you can really look in somebody's eyes on the screen and feel contact. So yeah, it is amazing.
Now, in a workshop, it's already I think 5-6 years ago, you talked about fear in organization. There's a lot of fear in organizations, and you can actually measure that. And there is a kind of a false perception of trust, and and I completely agree with that. Do you think that organizations and at the top level, some executives have fear and they want to protect their business, and they sometimes have very stupid measures in order to get their people to work? Don't you think that like things like system thinking or holacracy or more of these nature principles, that organizations that people had it, and that organizations really need to not to change but really to transform?
Correct, but that happens when you're ready. And in many cases the paradigm shift has not happened. Like we take measures that are mainly focused on tasks and processes and not on relationships. And here is like a basic thing about systems is that a system is not made of components but of relationships, and that you have to have healthy relationships to be able to really liberate the potential of an organization. And that's still underrated and underestimated, how much potential is unused. But that will not happen when there is no trust in the organization, and that you can be open, and that you can really express what you're sitting on. Same is true in personal relationships. If you cannot express yourself, you're bound to see the relationship degenerate, and there's no co-creation happening when you cannot connect.
Yeah, that's true. Now you've been, but before you were a writer, you had your own business, I believe.
I have had an own business for a while, for 8 years.
And when was actually the moment that you realized I'm a writer, or you knew that already when you were having that business?
That was some kind of synchronicity. I had no idea, actually.
Okay.
Now, there was somebody else who at one point got a question from a publisher to write a book on sales. And he came to me and he said, well, that's not my thing. Could we do that together? Because I had been a sales trainer for like a long time.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let's do it together. And then after a while, he said, you know what? It's not my thing. Why don't you do it? And so then we looked at the publisher, what he wanted to do. And basically, it was they didn't want to really invest in the project. They wanted to ride with somebody who was known for another subject, who was already a well-known person. And I was not a well-known person. So in the end, I had another business partner in those days. he said, you know what, let's start a publishing house. We'll do it ourselves.
Okay.
So my first book was, like I said, a coincidence, quote unquote. I decided then to do it. The other person withdrew, and with my business partner, we started a publishing house. So we published the book ourselves. It was a self-published book, yeah.
And what was it? That wasn't Flow, eh?
That was Flow and Flow in Business, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, because yes,
yeah, it's 20 years ago, and amazingly enough, in a matter of weeks, we were in the top 10 of the business books with the book.
Yeah, it's that's actually where it for me started 6 years ago during a career coaching project where they handed me 2 books, Flow and Baptiste de Pape, Power of the Heart. The Flow was for me more, that was okay, and then the Power of Heart was like, yeah, La La Land. But now I'm really, because I also won Baptiste here now, and I bought 50 copies of your book.
Oh, really? Oh, thank you.
And everybody that I encountered, and I like, you should read this book. I mean, if I feel they're ready, everybody's, especially somebody who was also on the episode, I think two episodes ago, Reed Bunnes, she's like, you really transformed my life with giving me this book. I have one of Wayne Dyer, Erroneous Zones, and this Flow of Jan Bommerez. You're a Belgian, but you're more popular in the Netherlands than in Belgium. You're like the jewel, the hidden secret.
Peter, I have sometimes in workshops, people came up to me and said, I reread your book every year. And I've done that now for more than 10 years. The book has been out for 20 years, and there are people who read it every year, one time again. It's because it's timeless.
But I've read it 5 times, and it's really, it's really, you can see it's used. But it's the same with the book, the first book that I bought, which the title by itself I found very strange, was of course Think and Grow Rich of Napoleon Hill. But then later on in one of your workshops, I read Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind, which I actually find even better, that resonates with me.
Me too,
But was then Napoleon Hill for you the first? Was that an idol or something? Was it something that you just stumbled upon during your training career?
In the early 80s, I found Napoleon Hill, and that really was like a beginning of a whole new perspective on life. But I didn't read Think and Grow Rich first. I read The Law of Success first.
Big one.
And I still think that is like really the foundation, The Law of Success. It's a big chunk, but it's worth reading.
Yeah, but it's also a book that has so much layers. If you read it just once, you just don't get it. People think it's becoming a millionaire, but it's not.
Right. No, it's not. No. The same is true for The 7 Habits by Stephen Covey. If you read it only once, you have no idea what's in that book. It has so many layers.
That's for me my first book with self or personal growth. That's Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Effective People. And at that time I was 28. I had absolutely no clue what he was talking about co-creation and things like that. I didn't resonate. Now, that first encounter with Napoleon Hill, was that like you read that and then you were like, oh, hallelujah, you found the light? Or did you also have some resistance towards the things he was writing?
Or some, I couldn't take everything in. I remember the whole chapter about managing money. I didn't really take that seriously, but I paid the price for that.
Yeah, but I believe that you mentioned when you were 30 in one of your workshops that you said, if at school nowadays they should master or teach, I wouldn't say accounting, but how to take care of your money, because
it is still, society still uses money as an exchange tool. So if you don't know what it is and how to manage it, you're basically out of touch with some kind of fabric in the society.
Okay.
And you can also run into walls because you're not planning correctly and budgeting correctly, that kind of stuff.
Okay, and then you went from Flow, which was more like a business book, and then your readers ask for a non-personal version,
A non-commercial version, yeah.
Non-commercial version without the selling, so really about personal life.
Right.
And that was also under the same, on your own publishing house?
Yeah. But that title has also been taken over by a publisher at one point.
Okay.
Because it was a very popular book. Then all of a sudden, publishers were interested because there were sales.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And the whole, the biggest, and it's something also that you posted a couple of days ago, there was a quote of Eckhart Tolle, and it's about the non-resistance. And I really grew up because we shared the same studies. And one of the things that I learned from you is, instead of learning something, I had to unlearn or de-learn, or what is the exact term? And the fact also that I really believed, you have hair. I don't have hair anymore. And it's actually a result of really believing that, not getting a lot of sleep and working day and night, working very, very hard in order to get results. And then you came with your Wu way, or your effortless living, or effortless doing business, whatever. And that completely shocked me. I'm like, it's, you have to work hard. And then can you go a little deeper on that?
Yeah. Well, I would start with the word productivity. Productivity is not how hard you work, but how much result you get for the work you do. So if you're really very productive, you can have a lot of result with little work. And that's basically what flow is not that you don't work, but that you get a lot of result for the work you do. And the reason is that you follow the universal principles, because you can never go wrong with universal principles. And that's what I originally learned from Napoleon Hill, that you cannot argue with universal laws. So Stephen Covey basically did another version of that, but if you follow the software of the universe in your own life, you can only get in the flow. It's like, there's no way around it.
It's a natural state.
Yeah, and what we don't understand in our Western society is that relaxation can be very productive. We think that production is producing and working hard, but basically one idea can give you more income than a long life of hard work.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of very big discoveries and a lot of businesses start during a walk. Like Baptiste Papa, you mentioned, same thing. He had his whole inspiration during a walk in the woods.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So all of a sudden he got like, I should make a film about the heart. And first he was like, what? But it came to him while he was in nature. And that's like, for somebody who only believes in efficiency and hard work, why would you take a walk in the woods? That's like losing production time. But if during a walk in the woods you get like the one idea, it's worth the walk.
Well, you also mentioned that Dutch person who actually had a furniture company, and like 20 hours in a week he was walking in the woods, and there he would get his best ideas.
Yeah, Willy Boeston.
Yeah,
that's thinking from before World War II.
Yeah, but I really believe it's still, I wouldn't say 80 or 90% of the organizations still think like that.
Yeah.
So
But if you go to Drucker and Covey, they basically, Drucker basically was the first one who made a distinction between efficiency and effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And then Covey took that definition, like efficiency is doing things right, effectiveness is doing the right things. And that makes all the difference. And to do the right things, you have to have systems thinking.
Yeah.
And very few people have ever learned systems thinking. Like when you understand a system is always ruled by inherent principles. And through the principles, you know where you have leverage on the system.
Yeah.
And leverage is a good example of productivity. You could not lift a rock with your hands, but you can lift it with a lever. And the same is true with universal law. If you use universal law, you have leverage.
Yeah.
There's no exception to universal law. So you use it, it works.
Now, you have actually, I would say, reinvented yourself a couple of times, because I used to see you as like a linear line. You were like, oh, this guy is always in flow and he really gets it, and I'm struggling. Then you admitted also that it isn't like that. Now,
No.
And now you're, the last year's really studying trauma.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I mean, is it like I had another flow, everything is said about flow?
No, it's actually an extension of the same path, but different. So I could actually say, you could say a title of my work could be From Freeze to Flow.
Okay.
It's because seeing why people are not in flow and why they cannot get back to flow and why they're stuck, I eventually had to see that there is trauma. It's the freeze energy that keeps us out of flow more than anything else. Even when you have good intentions, there are so many people who have good intentions and then they don't follow up because they have freeze energy. And that's really a subject that is also totally misunderstood and underestimated. And also collective trauma. Even in organizations, there is collective trauma. Why people don't move and why there is not co-creation is because there's a reactivity. And where is that coming from? From survival patterns.
Yeah.
People are stuck in the past, and not because they want to, but because they had traumatic experiences. I believe that people are basically good, but people can become criminals through trauma.
Yeah.
Look at all the people that are in jails. How many people had trauma in their life? Peter Levine, who is like the big name in trauma, says trauma is the most underestimated problem of humanity.
Yeah.
And I believe that. I really believe that.
I mean, if you look at I think I've also, you introduced me to Gabor Mate, to his videos about trauma. I mean,
amazing guy.
Even his own story.
Yeah.
It's a complete, he was Jewish, he was born during, he was 3 months and it was World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, but if people now listening and for instance, I have a couple of colleagues and they are running straight into a burnout. And for me, a burnout is also a form of trauma. Correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it should be treated as a trauma. Yeah, people recover faster if they have trauma therapy after burnout.
Okay, and what then you recommend?
I would like to come back to Napoleon Hill. The key teaching of Napoleon Hill is that when you trust what he calls infinite intelligence, and that you don't rely on your limited thinking, but that you become quiet and you let universal intelligence take over, which is also the power of the heart.
Yeah.
That you are, it's like the difference between the caterpillar and the butterfly. Yeah. The caterpillar cannot fly.
Yeah.
The butterfly can fly.
Yeah.
And flow is actually a butterfly state. And resistance is being stuck in gravity, like the caterpillar.
Yeah.
So it's actually a development of potential. We all have it in us, but it's stuck on the freeze energy and the trauma more than anything else.
What then you recommend as people taking the first steps, beside taking your online course, which we're going to talk about in the end, is then experiment with certain techniques. Don't do the same things as you used to. Don't follow the traditional classical doctor path, solve it with medicine, drugs thing.
No, you always have to also listen to your doctor, but it's important to understand your system. And that's what I mean to do. Part of what I mean to do with my book on trauma is to have an education on your own nervous system. You have to understand how your system works if you want to be able to consciously work with it instead of against it. We do a lot of things because we don't understand what we're doing. So, for instance, the polyvagal theory and what that means for understanding your body and why burnout happens, that's like basic education. But most of the medical doctors don't know it yet, let alone the broad public.
Can you explain a little bit more what it is?
Yeah. So what happened is that Stephen Porges, who is a researcher, was looking at, we always were told that the nervous system has two departments, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic creates a stress response, the parasympathetic brings you back to the rest state. But then he was asking the question, why do people not come back from the stress response to the baseline?
Yeah.
And so he basically saw that the parasympathetic system was dysfunctional in most people. So, and through his research, he found that there are actually two sections in the parasympathetic nervous system. And it's an evolutionary question. The oldest part of the parasympathetic system is called the dorsal vagus, and the vagus nerve starts in your brainstem, and it goes along your spine, and it affects all your organs, your breathing, your heart, and all your intestines, your excretion, your blood pressure, the whole thing, your heart rate. So it's actually the automatic management of your whole system, right? But then there is another part, the evolutionary part in the parasympathetic system, which is called the ventral vagus. And that is the part that goes from your heart to your face.
Okay.
And it is connected to the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the voice. And that is what he has then called the social engagement system.
Okay.
That's evolutionary, that comes later in the evolution, where we had to survive as groups. And we had to know who is safe to be with. So evolution developed actually a neuro system to feel safety in relationships. And that is what the ventral vagus is. So when nowadays a baby is born, that is the only communication it has is to look at the face, mainly of the mother,
yes,
and to listen to the voice. But there is no thinking.
No.
So Stephen Porges came with a new word. It's called Neuro Reception. Is that your nervous system perceives safety by reading the face and listening to the voice intonation. And that's how we feel safe or not safe in a relationship. But when that ventral vagus is not well developed, you don't see the signals in relationships.
Okay.
And you can get stuck in really wrong relationships because you don't see where the red flags are.
Okay.
And that is the case with a lot of people. So why is the ventral vagus not active in many people? There's two reasons. One is that it's not developed enough during the attachment period. So we're born with an unfinished nervous system.
Okay.
The nervous system in the first years develops in relationship with the caretakers. And if that is not safe, it's called unsafe attachment. Your nervous system structurally is in the survival mode for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Because your parasympathetic system, the social engagement system, could not fully develop. And the second reason is that the freeze response also happens in the dorsal vagus. So the dorsal vagus manages your intestines, but it also manages the freeze response.
Okay.
So when there is trauma and there is freeze response, and your parasympathetic cannot go back to baseline, your whole system gets upset. You get digestive problems, sexual problems, blood pressure problems, immune problems, and so on and so on. And that's basically where most chronic diseases come from.
Now, But let's be clear, everybody has traumas.
Yeah.
I mean,
but most people don't know that.
Yeah, okay. But I have now a toddler of, there is an almost 3-year-old son who's now going to bed, and he let it just know by shouting. Now, if you're a parent, I mean, what can you do? Of course, I read also the Inuit article about it's a very different way of parenting. And it's something that I apply, and a lot of people think I'm crazy about that. But, but what actually would you recommend to parents with very young children? They're tired, but you have also children, but they're a little bit older, and they can feed themselves and get dressed. But when they're very young, like babies, what can you recommend in order that they would not damage them a lot, because they will have some trauma after all?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be traumatic. That is the whole point. There is something called self-regulation. What is that? Is that you're able to let your nervous system know that you're safe. And you learn self-regulation through co-regulation. So when a kid falls and they're panicking, that is traumatic for them, or it could be traumatic, but it is not traumatic if you're being soothed by somebody. If the kid is being taken in the arms and it's being consoled and so on, then that same experience is not traumatic, because you don't go into the freeze mode. It's when you make fun of them when they fall. That is bad. But if they fall and you really take care of them, that experience doesn't go into freeze mode.
Okay. Interesting.
So just being there for them and letting them know you love them and letting them know that they're safe now makes sure that the experiences don't stick for the rest of their lives.
I'm going to stay a little bit in the same area. You mentioned a couple of days ago a post about holding space. I mean, for me, it's a little bit similar to that. You mentioned that you had lost a loved one when you were 25 or 30 or something.
Klopt, yeah, my best friend.
And that was very traumatic for you. And at that time, you were not really aware. And it was...
And nobody was aware that basically trauma was not a word people used. I just, after the funeral, I had to go back to work, and I was still very traumatized, and I couldn't grieve.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you can grieve a loss and you're being supported in your grieving, it doesn't have to affect you the rest of your life. But in my case, 30 years later, I found still huge grief in my system.
Yeah, okay, but was that then the result of for instance, the typical boys cannot cry, big boys cannot cry, and that you developed kind of...
No, you have shock trauma. I imploded. I was totally in freeze, but then you have to go back to work. And then you develop what we call functional freeze. You still can function, but part of you is not taking part of life anymore. You're dissociated partly, and you have like another part that has to develop social skills to keep going, but part of you is not there. And that's why in shamanism they're calling trauma therapy soul retrieval, is that you have to get back the parts that you lost that are stuck in trauma.
And then 30 years later, you followed some kind of meditation or relaxation therapy or something like that?
I did delta meditation.
Okay.
And that opened me up. I went so deep in delta meditation, like you go in deep sleep. But many people wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And that's in many cases because of all trauma that becomes available when you go into delta. So I went into deep relaxation, and my body started to give me the symptoms of the suppressed pain, and I started getting headaches, my neck, my shoulders, my back pain. I got pain everywhere. Okay. So then that's when I learned focusing, the
Yeah.
Eugene Gendlin method.
Yeah.
And through focusing, I was able to bring it out. And I cried my lungs out. And that was 30 years after the death of my friend. I cried my lungs out. And it was so bad, I actually could not breathe at one point. I was totally like this. My lungs were totally overtaken by the grief. And that was 30 years later.
And can you then be like trauma free? So where you have 100% that everything can flow through your body, or is that?
That's the idea. Yeah, that's how modern trauma therapy works, is that you repair the flow.
But
you don't have to know the details, and that's why I'm also very interested to connect it to flow. Is basically when the flow of life energy is free in your body, you're in the middle, you're centered, and your sympathetic and parasympathetic work together. That's the repair of the flow.
Okay.
So in most people, it is the repair of the ventral vagus that has to be done.
So, and then you can be like really 100% trauma free.
Well, I am not there yet, but it's possible. It's basically the work that I do for myself too, is to create the space that the flow can get through again. And you immediately feel a difference when you have created a new opening. There's new energy that comes available. But it's a long work, especially if you have childhood trauma, because then your nervous system has not grown correctly. So you cannot move between stress response and going back to baseline. So you have to repair that. And even if you're aware of it, it can take you 2 years of daily exercise to reset your nervous system.
Okay.
But we don't learn those things. So I'm learning it now, and I'm making a lot of progress by knowing my nervous system and by doing exercises for my nervous system. But it's not for free. It's not that you like turn the switch. You really have to work at it.
And so in your new book, when is it coming, or when do you want it to come, or is it like we will see you in it?
I hope this year. I think by the end of the year it will be out. Yeah.
And there it's going to be a summary of all the techniques that you.
So you cannot do everything in a book.
No, of course.
No, but there will be an educational part, understanding the system, understanding what trauma is, what early trauma is, what development trauma is, what attachment trauma is, and so on. And then suggestions of what you can do for yourself, but also what kind of help you can look for. Because there are a lot of people, I myself, I have had years of wrong solutions because I didn't know what was my problem. So just knowing that you need to work with the body, like talk therapy doesn't do a lot for trauma.
Yeah. So this means that you're saying you don't have to know really what the problem is with you, because you don't have to work on the problem. You work on the body and you release the trauma. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what the real problem is. Correct?
Well, sort of. It's like, especially, let's do one step back to evolution, psychological and neuro evolution. Your left brain doesn't become really part of the story until your 3rd year.
Yeah.
And in the left brain, we have the speech center. So you have to learn to speak, and that's a development of the left brain, right? And the left brain also has what we call explicit memory. Yeah. So everything that happens before that is called implicit memory. And what is that? Is that you don't know what happened, but your body knows.
Okay.
And implicit memory shows up as body pains, as emotional states, and so on and so on. And implicit memory doesn't have a timestamp. So when it happens, you think it's something in your life now. And your body doesn't know it's something from the past. So your body goes in survival mode when it's activated. So you can feel like digestive problems and you think, what did I eat? But it can be your nervous system that is activated from past trauma, and then people take all kinds of acid reducers,
No.
but that doesn't solve anything. In the end, you ruin your stomach by taking all the acid reflux medication. I just saw recently that there is now like a big collective case against one of those companies. What acids reduce medication in the long run destroys your stomach.
Yeah.
So it's okay to take it from time to time, but it doesn't solve the reason why your stomach is so upset.
The roots.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, and it's going to be then the same. So you will release the book. You will sell a lot of these books, and then you come again to the Benelux, to Belgium and the Netherlands, do workshops. Is it going to be similar, or is it like maybe I have already some stuff for a new book?
No, there will be some book presentations, but it will be an online training.
Okay.
I don't want to travel anymore like I did before.
Yeah.
Like in April, I'm turning 69. So next year I'll be 70. So I will keep working, but it's not the same as when you're in your 40s.
That's now, yeah, but I was always thinking, I mean, I'm talking about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, you were like 65. I mean, traveling from the US so many times, and every workshop, you seem so very healthy and very, that you didn't have any jet lag at all. I mean, a lot of people would not believe you're becoming 70. How did you do that? Is it really because the flow that you're studying? What is the medicine, or is just like, oh?
Well, you take your time to get the jet lag. Of course, I don't travel and do workshop the same day. I take at least a week before I do anything in the professional area. No, I don't have that type of energy. I have worked with Tom Peters, for instance, the guy from In Search of Excellence. He could do that. He could travel, get on a plane, not sleep, and do a whole day workshop. I couldn't do that. He did like 150 workshops in a year worldwide. You cannot do that, and every time take a week for the jet lag. He was just getting off planes and doing it. And Baptiste has also gone through that, and eventually, if your system breaks, you cannot keep going through all those time zones and not have differences.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I mean, you've talked about, we know you're already for your admiration for Napoleon Hill. Now, we're like 2020. Who is your guy, girl, women that you find now really inspiring nowadays? In whatever.
There's more than one. Gabor Mate is one.
Yeah.
Stephen Porges is one. Peter Levine is one. I'm very focused on how do you liberate the potential that is stuck in trauma. So those are the people that are enlightening me right now. But I also keep looking at the people who, like Eckhart Tolle, who basically moved beyond that. So there is not one person.
No,
and
of course.
Napoleon Hill was like really a beginning for me, like a beginning of there is something else than what I've learned in school.
So, and imagine that you can take a DeLorean, you can go back, and you will meet your 18-year-old Jan just before you went to university in Leuven. What are the 3 things that you would say to him?
Perhaps I wouldn't go to university.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very hard to say what you would say to your 18-year-olds. I really don't have like 3 things I could say. I would have to sleep on that.
Okay.
What it would be. Probably with what I do, with what I know now, I would take care of my body in a different way and my nervous system. See, to give you an example, when I went to university, I had insomnia.
Okay.
So I worked through university with tremendous insomnia. That was very hard on me. During exams, when you don't sleep enough, that's suffering. So that's definitely something I would deal with in a different way, instead of all that suffering and going to an exam with 2 hours sleep. It's like, that was really hard.
Okay. And I mean, you're almost 70. Do you think about what life would be, or who Jan is going to be within 10 years? Is that something that you are thinking about? Or is it?
Not thinking, no.
Okay.
No, I trust the development of the flow, and I hope I will have another 10 years, but you don't know. You basically have to live now.
Yeah, of course.
And it's very funny. I think it was a Lao Tzu quote who said, if you take care of the now, the future will take care of itself. And that's basically how I do everything, is that you don't know what 10 years from now the world will be, how things will be. It's the only thing you know is where you know.
Yeah.
And if you deal with the now, then you basically live from your potential and not from your fears.
Yeah. And this is maybe a question you never had, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is actually for you a wild dream that you still have, that you did not do something really crazy? I mean, that you, I don't know, want to do or be, whatever it is. There must be something that you say, I don't know, jumping from a plane, or becoming a host on Oprah. I don't know,
Nah,
as wild
not,
as it can be.
not that crazy, but I feel that I didn't travel enough. I definitely would like to travel.
To see
The coming
places.
years. Yeah, to see places, yeah. Yeah. And being on Oprah, who knows? She's a neighbor of mine, so
Okay.
she lives in Santa Barbara. Who knows?
But the book is going to be only in Dutch.
No, it probably will be in English too.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. It all depends what my breakthrough is, because I don't want to just write another book with things that other people have written before. So that's why my own process is my most interesting research.
Yeah.
Because then if you really make a breakthrough of something you can do for yourself, and that you can share that with other people, then you have a message of hope. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So if you would call that my dream, yeah, I would like to have a book that really helps a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because I know what the consequences of trauma can be in my own life. I have suffered more than my share. So, and that's also why you have so much understanding for what people go through. And often they cannot talk to other people about it because nobody understands them.
No, that's correct.
But when you've been there, you know what they're going through and how hard it is, and that positive thinking will not help you.
Yeah.
You can say all you want. I'm feeling okay and I'm safe, and your brainstem doesn't hear that. And that's where the trauma is. Your brainstem is all about survival, and it doesn't have a verbal capacity. So you basically have to liberate your brainstem, and that's not an easy thing to do. But it must be possible. So that's why I'm experimenting myself with different things. I'm doing the Wim Hof breathing techniques, and I'm doing the cold showers. I'm really trying out all those things.
And what do you think about the cold showers?
Well, I don't like it, but I do them.
Yeah, I do them now for 2 years, and
Yeah.
I don't like them, but the feeling that I get afterwards that I've done it, my body comes, I wouldn't say addicted to it, but it's used to that. If I don't do it, it's like...
You generate positive neurotransmitters in your body. So what Wim says basically, I heard him say that in an interview, is that our bodies are not challenged enough anymore in our society, where we sit in front of a computer and all that. And we eat processed foods, and we have all the comfort. So people who are challenged have healthier nervous systems, because the nervous systems basically have to be strong to deal with the environment. So a cold shower is actually challenging your nervous system to grow and to become stronger.
Yeah.
And the breathing techniques allow you to go into the autonomic nervous system and to make changes at a very deep level.
Yeah. It's fantastic. He also climbed the Kilimanjaro in his pants in 2 days with his breathing technique. It's like crazy.
Yeah, and Robert Bridgman did that too with a group.
They did it together. I find it. I was quite a little bit. Wouldn't say. I found it very strange at the beginning what he was saying and doing, but when you read his story, you listen to his story, because his wife committed suicide. He had 4 children, and he was sitting outside with barely no clothes on, the cold. It's really amazing.
See, he had also worked through a very big trauma. And either you become suicidal and you get on drugs and alcohol, or you do something about it. And he basically found inner resources. And he changed science. He changed the paradigms of science. He proved that science did not understand the parasympathetic nervous system fully.
They even injected him with poison or with some kind of disease or something to really show that he could reject that. I find it
pretty amazing guy.
It's
he has a twin brother.
No. Because they did a test. They did a test.
He has an identical twin, so it's very, very interesting as a study object. Because his brother did not the breathing. He was ill, and he was not. That's correct. Interesting story.
Okay, we're at the end now. Lerenloslaten.com is the online platform. Where did you get the idea to also release? Because it's really tricky now to do your services online. Where did you get the idea to, instead of doing the workshops, have an online platform? Was that due because you didn't want to travel anymore, or?
Well, because I wanted to free more time for my research in the first instance, and also the traveling. But first, the main reason is that I want to have all my time and research on my trauma research.
Okay. Well, then Jan, for me, this is it. Is there something you want to share? Or you said, I want to share this with everybody in the world that we did not talk about?
I think we thought about what is my focus, and that people definitely have an advantage in learning to understand their own system, and that body and mind are not two separate things. Through the body, you can change the mind, and that is actually an amazing thing. And that's also what basically Wim Hof tells people and shows people, that through the body you can change the mind, because the patterns, what we call the mind patterns, are stuck in the body, and that's where you have to liberate them.
Okay. Now, for the new book, it's going to be a new platform, so also it's going to be a new name. So it's not lerenloslaten.com, I assume. So it's going to be something completely new.
Yeah, that will come in due time, and I will probably do in October and November a couple of workshops it will all be in the Netherlands. I don't think I will have one in Belgium, but just like a couple of pilot projects.
Okay, cool. If I can come, I will come.
I was planning to come in June, but Corona has decided differently.
Okay.
So I moved everything to October.
November. If people want to know more about you, is it like janbommerez.com or something, or where they can find you? It's lerenloslaten.com, or?
That's through lerenloslaten.com. I can always get messages.
Yeah, and also you have lots of videos of people who interviewed you on YouTube, of course, and lots of your how do you call that?
Podcasts, more and more podcasts. It's like, that's the new channel. What we're doing now.
There are more people listening to podcasts than to the radio. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
This is co-creation, nice. Jan. This is.
Yeah, that's right. I like it. Yeah.
It's yeah, me too. I'm very grateful that you took the time because, you know, I'm a very big fan of you. You inspire me a lot. I can really say that my life and my professional life also really changed because of your books and the things you said. So I'm very grateful. I'm going to put a link of your website, so lerenloslaten.com, because your assistant also gave me some kind of discounts proposal for the people who want to join your online course.
A coupon code.
Yeah, a coupon code. Yes, I'm going to mention it in the comments. So they can. I've also bought it, and it's it's. I mean, you can experiment to do different methods and see what works for you. The only thing is that you have to be open for it. Simple as that.
Yeah. And the people who have the best results are doing it every day. And that's why we made the lessons short, that you can really put it into your daily schedule.
Okay.
So that's what I wish for everybody, is that they can find who they really are under all the patterns.
And is like typical meditation is like in the morning and in the afternoon or even in the evening?
You have to find what works for you. I don't give very on those things. You have to see what works for you.
Okay.
So there are people who do it in the morning. There are people who are doing it at night. So and when you're working at home, you can decide when you want to do it. But you have to find out what works. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
All right.
So thanks a lot, Jan, and see
My
you soon.
pleasure.
Hopefully, see you soon. I hope in the Netherlands, and I wish you lots of success. And I really hope that you come next year on Opera. So
who knows? All right.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, eh?
All right.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.